video will provide an overview of how the schedule operates with respect to non-billable events and the importance of its integration with timesheets and payroll. To learn the mechanics of inputting the non-billable events, please see the video titled How to Enter Non-Billable Events in the Scheduling series. Let's take a look at the schedule. When scheduling events, you will set them as either billable or non-billable. If the event is specific to a client and a service, it will be billable. If the event has nothing to do with the client or service, such as staff trainings, administrative time, or even unavailable staff time, it will be considered non-billable. Non-billable events can be used in several different ways depending on your usage of the system. First, if you are running payroll through OnTarget, then you may choose to use the scheduled non-billable time to create your payroll hours. The time entered on the schedule can be directly imported into the payroll module, creating efficiencies for both the clinical and the payroll staff. Secondly, if you are using the timesheets feature, you have the option to import the scheduled events into the timesheets to produce the payroll hours. Be mindful that in both of those options, you do have the control over whether or not you use the non-billable events in creating the payroll records. If your only need is to enter in non-billable time so that time slots are reserved on staff's calendars in order to effectively manage staff availability, and you do not need the time reflected on the timesheet nor in payroll, then you have the flexibility to manage the schedules in such a way. In most cases, if you are using payroll and timesheets, and if you have implemented the notes, then the notes are the intended source for both payroll and billing records rather than the scheduled events. For timesheet purposes, the control point for whether or not scheduled events, including billable and non-billable, can create timesheet records is managed under Configure, Edit Company Settings, Enable Schedule Import to Timesheets. In order to schedule non-billable events, the selected employee must have pay type set up. These pay types are linked to the employee record in the employee's desktop. The pay type setup is critical if you intend to import non-billable time from the schedule into the timesheet or into the payroll system if you are not using timesheets, because each pay type is attached to a corresponding pay rate. The pay types are configured in such a way so that the employee's time is accurately reflected for payroll purposes. If neither timesheets nor payroll are being used, then the pay type setup can be more flexible and perhaps more descriptive in regards to how non-billable time is captured. For example, it may be appropriate to set up pay types such as meeting or unavailable just to block off time on the calendar. But it may become too cumbersome to break out such detailed categories of pay types from the payroll perspective if payroll is implemented. In any case, you do have a full range of options. Plus, keep in mind that pay types are added uniquely to each employee. So while it might be necessary for doctors or clinicians to have very detailed calendars in order to manage appointments, it might not be necessary for all staff to have such a breakdown. The pay type setup is covered in more detail in the video titled How to Set Up Pay Types for Non-Billable Events. Each event can optionally be linked to a status. The status is a means for organizing like events as they are color-coded. The right use of the status could be a way to keep your pay types pretty general but still allow the time to be specifically categorized. For example, in favor of keeping pay type set up at a minimum, I could enter in time against an administrative pay type but apply the status of unavailable in order to further categorize this type of event. Any user could then search by the unavailable status to find the specific time on any person's calendar in which they are unavailable. Statuses are configured under the Configure desktop in List Configuration, Scheduling, and Time Schedule Statuses. Back at the schedule, a nice feature of non-billable events is that you can open any event after it's scheduled and create a task. You can assign the task to any individual, maybe to remind them of the appointment. This task then shows up on the assignee's dashboard, and they may receive an email notification if they have that feature enabled. You may also export the calendars for a report to deliver of both the billable and non-billable scheduled events. This report can either be printed or exported again into a desired file type. Hopefully now you have a better idea of how to implement non-billable events into the calendars. For any questions, please contact our support department by going to Options, Support, and Contact Support.